everybody. Welcome to the news update. Hi, Sebastian. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Ooh, I don't know how to play a ukulele. Let's talk about some comic book news. It's important.
It's a bit anachronistic. I don't think they had ukuleles in the Old West.
Yeah, the hobos. No, I'm thinking more hobos.
Tramps.
Thinking like tramps and hostos, maybe from the 30s, that kind of thing. All right, I'll put it down. I know I sense your hostility.
No hostility at all. I think that we should go back in time and give them ukuleles.
Yeah, the homeless to hobo plan that we got.
Get the can of beans and
people would like the homeless more if they were hobos.
I think so. So we got a ukulele and a can of beans and a bindle in every homeless to hobos package.
Well, what happened this week? Something pretty major.
The biggest thing this week: Spider-Man Peter Parker is going home to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a crazy deal.
Yeah, I mean, explain this deal. It's like Kevin.
So Feige will, like, I guess the lowdown is that it's co-production, and Sony will make the Spider-Man movies that will be in line with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But that also means that the Disney-produced films get to have Spider-Man make appearances in them, and that Kevin Feige will be producing the Spider-Man films for Sony in conjunction.
So they're basically saying, we'll basically let you run the Spider-Man movies as long as you make us money.
That's what it sounds like for the most part. And they're doing Civil War, and this was a deal that sort of got leaked in the middle of all the Sony hack. So wouldn't you say the Sony hack kind of made this happen? You know what? That's the North Koreans. Thank you, dear leader.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, dear leader, for.
No, but I mean, in a weird way, I mean, they probably getting to the negotiating table talking about Spider-Man.
Yeah, and the fact that a lot of people heard that and then were very receptive to, if Spider-Man can't go back whole hog, that at least we can, Sony gets to they essentially both get to have their cake and eat it too.
Okay, but let's talk about what's gonna happen. No more Andrew Garfield.
No more Andrew Garfield, and I'm sad. I know there's probably a few people on the internet who are happy because they did not like those movies, but I think him and Emma Stone were the best parts of that movie. They
were absolutely the best part of not great movies. But they were amazing. He was a great Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I will miss him.
I liked him as Spider-Man, and that makes me sad. But I mean, of course, there's the rumor mill going around, and the young actor from Fury, whose name escapes me.
He was in Percy Jackson.
He was in Percy Jackson as well.
He was in like every movie over the last year. Like when they need a young.
Yeah, he's 23, but he's got a baby face.
Yeah, he plays 13.
Yeah,
14.
and if they're...
Oh, you know what? Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Yes,
he was the star of that film.
So if that's the direction they're going for, they're skewing young. They want a high schooler that they can introduce, Midtown High, Tony Stark.
Did you ever understand why they took Spidey out of high school so quickly in the movies? I never did.
I mean, like in the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, like once they hit that 2/3 mark, graduation happened.
Yeah, which I didn't get, because to me, the best Spidey is high school Spidey.
Because he's got that cast of characters that isn't just Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy. He's got, he's got Flash Thompson. He's got just everybody.
Betty Brant. He was dating Betty Brant from the Daily Bugle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on.
So it seemed kind of sad, and and all the Spider-Man shows, apart from the '90s series, especially the modern ones like Ultimate Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man, both kept him in high school, and he was created to relate to the teenagers who they didn't realize were reading their books.
Well, I think that's the one. I think that's one thing they can do that hasn't been done yet in the Spider-Man movies, and that's have him be the young eyes of the Marvel Universe.
Right.
Like, because when I was a kid, it was like I learned about the Marvel Universe through Spider-Man comics, because he was like the first issue. I think he's with the Fantastic Four
in his first full appearance.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I think that'd be wonderful to see him web swinging and having a great time.
Yeah.
And being, 14.
Yeah, we know the origin. I don't think they have to do it again, and I don't think you'd have to.
Do you think they know the origin by now?
I would hope so. I would hope, and there's a lot of calls for Miles to be in the movie, and I see not so much as him as a starting point, but what they're doing with, like Chris Evans, who will eventually be leaving the role of Captain America, and they've set up Sebastian Stan to take over.
Yeah.
I feel like
Bucky.
Yeah, and I feel like that is the path you could do if they have a plan of longevity. You get to have, again, you get to have your cake and eating it too. I wouldn't mind Peter Parker being in a large stretch of films and then doing something that, even if they were to go that ultimate route of self-sacrifice, and then introducing someone who looked up to him, and even introducing him in a film and then having him be the guy who looks up to Peter Parker.
Well, it's interesting. You're talking about a more generational approach.
Yeah, exactly.
To the Marvel movies.
That's how I feel would actually be the best course of action, because if they want these movies to last a long time, they will have to update them, unless they go the James Bond route and they just recast, which is another route I'm not opposed to either.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? You can't keep kids young forever.
Right. And again, if they were to have...
But though Alex P. Keaton did stay young for
a long time. He still looks like just really old high schooler.
Yeah.
who had to be stuck in school for a couple years afterwards.
Well, interesting you bring up Bond.
Yeah.
We've got The Kingsman coming out this weekend.
For Valentine's Day.
Which Matthew Vaughn is a director, and I really love Matthew Vaughn. I love the movie.
Matthew Vaughn's great. I liked his first Kick-Ass. I enjoyed his second one a little bit more. I think he took what he could from the source material and made something.
Did you ever see Layer Cake?
I did.
Layer Cake's his Bond movie. But
yes.
This is sort of like, this movie's kind of like Bond on steroids, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and he did X-Men First Class.
And then we also saw there's
the first featurette.
First featurette from the upcoming James Bond movie.
Yeah, Spectre.
It's gonna be so
and
cool.
the first very cool set picture, and immediately on Her Majesty's Secret Service was the first thing I thought of. Him in the snow.
Which was funny. That's one of our favorite James Bond movies. He was only Bond for one movie.
The Crazy Ozzy, and the tragic tale of George Lazenby and how he got and lost that role.
It's funny. I think you could make a documentary just on him.
Yeah. And then we also have some interesting news from IDW. They are building their own museum as part of their San Diego headquarters. A comic.
Is it a comic museum or is it an IDW?
It's the way. At least when I read the press release, not specifically an IDW museum, but a museum that honors the art of the graphic medium of comic books.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's very, very interesting, and it's very, very cool. It's very open of a company. You don't get a lot. I mean, you don't see Marvel or DC giving a lot of tours or inviting people into their world. I mean, Warner Brothers has their Batman exhibit, which they had for a little while.
Yeah.
But nothing of the, here is a museum dedicated to the art form of comic books.
Yeah. What was it from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Kevin
Eastman. Yeah.
Kevin Eastman had a museum for a while.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think shut down, but he was the first one to do it.
See, that's fascinating information, and especially his books. I know, especially since his characters are at IDW now. So,
that makes sense. Maybe he said something to them.
Yeah, I think it's very, very cool. And the other big news from last week, what we're covering this week, especially now that I guess we can all have some perspective on it, is DC is shunning heavy continuity, which is something they were doing pre-New 52. They had a series of books that had a more linear continuity, but everything around them...
Like Long Halloween.
Yeah.
Like Kingdom Come.
Right, Kingdom Come, Long Halloween, like their Batman Black and White series,
right.
All-Star Superman.
Batman Legends of the Dark Knight.
Which were all
they were all just great creative teams of people who couldn't do a monthly book, but wanted to do a Batman story.
Yeah, and now we've got sort of that spirit coming back in books like Prez, about a teenage president, that sounds fun.
I mean, to me, DC's characters are so iconic
Yeah.
And like, even more so than the Marvel characters, they're so iconic. Like, they're such recognized entities that this really is the route to go.
It is, and it's fascinating that I look at it as that it took this long after the New 52, but everybody's kind of going, it's only been 3 years. But I feel like that they were so strict on continuity that they sacrificed a lot of just good stories for the sake of...
Well, you don't, I mean, you could look at the New 52 and, like, there's no way A Long Halloween could have come out of that.
Right, which is...
that reign. And, you know, for all the pluses for having continuity, a big minus is when you can't have the hottest creators
do what they
working
want.
with you. Yeah, working with your characters.
Right, especially when, like, they were saying things like, yeah, the Grant Morrison Batman, a lot of Batman's history was still in continuity, and that sort of leaves you in this weird place of, well, what about this? How could he have this many Robins? And I think it's good to just be like, look, at this point, it's not, that is no longer important.
In a weird way, I feel like Grant Morrison's Multiversity series was like the first
trigger.
First salvo in this new approach.
Right, and on one of our podcasts, we were actually talking about the most recent, which was the guidebook to the Multiversity, and there's shots of, like there's a great shot of the Flashes, but it's Jay Garrick Flash, but the original Earth 2, the real Earth 2 Jay Garrick Flash from the Golden Age, alongside the current Earth 2 Jay Garrick, alongside the classic beloved Wally West, and also Johnny Quick, and I feel like, again, like that bizarre, like...
Max Mercury in there?
Yeah, exactly. All those characters, and you go, it's like, but you've got Jay Garrick from the classic Earth 2, but you've also got this Jay Garrick who's also supposedly Earth 2, but now I feel like that opens up, it's like, maybe we'll get a Justice Society book of those classic characters again without having to worry about where does this fit. It's just like, I want to see Jay, and I want to see Alan Scott again, and I want to see Wildcat. I want to see those characters again and not have to stress about trying to... Because I do, and that's the folly of nerddom, in a way, is like almost a spiritual or religious connection to a series of texts that when they can't jibe or can't coexist in a proper timeline, you kind of you freak out. And I can't say I'm alone.
I always view it as what becomes canon is the best story.
Right.
Like, The Dark Knight Returns, which takes place in the future.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty much considered
a possible future for
Batman's
future.
in.
And the Batman Beyond, who started in the animated series stuff,
so
good he became canon. Killing Joke was a book that was non-canonical and became canon, even though a lot of
Long Halloween again
book.
Bringing that up, that is considered canon for like the first the second year 1.5 or something.
Yeah, exactly. And introducing that cast of characters that sort of mixes in with.
So to me, continuity is like the best story.
Right, and I feel like this is the good way of going, like, okay, this story didn't work, it's an Elseworlds. Yeah. Don't worry about it. And that's what that is the feeling that we used to have. We used to have Elseworlds all the time.
I loved having Elseworlds. They got a little hokey now and then, but I just like the idea that DC was so willing to play with its mythos. And they got amazing creative teams.
Right, and you kept what worked, and you just said it's you just pushed aside what didn't work, and it was a stress-free time.
Yeah. So I say
bravo. Good. I'm
Bravo.
happy that this decision happened because it fascinates me, the timetable on it, and then Grant Morrison sort of working on Multiversity for so long. And then it becomes this issue of like...
Yeah, he was working on Multiversity before they even relaunched.
The first thing they announced after Final Crisis was Multiversity, and then I'm sure things had to change, but now we've got Multiversity, which, as far as I'm concerned, sits in its own pocket canon, because it can now.
Yeah.
It doesn't have. Before they were selling Multiversity as the history of this new multiverse, and now you've got them like it doesn't matter. This is just Grant being Grant.
It's like a universe that's so rich that it can encompass all of these stories now, rather than being constricted.
Right, and you no longer need this. For me, this hamstrung nature of there's only 52 versions of these characters out there, and it's like, okay, good, because Marvel has thousands of universes, and every what if is its own pocket universe, and that's fine because nobody goes like, well, how does this story jibe with that? It's just like, okay, this story is now its own whatever. This is
well, I mean, not to get too much into Marvel, but even what they're doing now with the Secret Wars stuff, and basically taking the Ultimate line and melding it.
Right, and then being able to pick and choose, like, oh, we love this character from this universe, and I have my theory of, we talked about it last week, of what they may do with Steve Rogers as a very, very apt way of being able to get back to what people know and love without sacrificing a history.
Get back. Get back.
Now if we can only play the ukulele.
If I
No, don't keep singing, they'll come after us.
Yeah, we're in trouble. And what was the other thing? Oh, is an Outcast the Robert
Kirkman book is getting I guess got greenlit at AMC for a show, so he'll be joining The Walking Dead, Kirkman's new home.
Did you ever imagine the years ago remember when Walking Dead was becoming a big comic book? Did you ever imagine Kirkman would get this big?
No, never.
And that Walking Dead would get
not
this
for
big?
Invincible, not for Walking Dead, and that's no slight to Kirkman. That is just pure.
No, it's just who could imagine a zombie story being
that big,
a huge ratings blockbuster.
And it's a show that is very divisive, hugely divisive. You either love it or hate it. Yeah. And it's one, and I say at least, I respect Kirkman and his decision to be like, if I made it exactly like the book, there would be a lot of people who get bored, and I because it keeps the spirit of the comics, and it's like, look, that train is not stopping. That is
no, and then they're making the spinoff,
making a spin-off show of just another set of Survivor somewhere else. And that's something Kirkman has.
LA, I think it's going to be
Los Angeles, and that's something Kirkman has talked about, on and off. And that, like, look, the story doesn't have to be about Rick. And if he ever wanted to off Rick and move the story somewhere else, that he could.
Maybe they'll kill Rick one of these days.
Maybe.
I mean, the guy's, not on the TV series, but he's missing a hand, and I don't know, did he lose an eye?
His kid lost part of his face.
Yeah. You're never going to make me believe that kid survived that shot. I saw the art.
Poor Coral. He just hole in his head.
Well, I guess we should wrap it up.
Yeah, that about covers the news.
Yes, the news
of what's been going on the past couple weeks. So if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, give us a like and hit the subscribe.
Press that like.
Press the like. We would like your validation. I was wrong. I said we didn't need it, but we would like it.
He said that, but I need the validation. I need it.
We would like it. We would very much.
I'm glad to hear you say that.
Thank you.
You're a big man.
Thank you. Thank you. I am happy to admit that we would like. It's like, hey, we want to know if we're doing good.
We like to be liked.
Yeah, we all like.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's human.
Everyone needs to be loved. All you need is love. Do, 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 do.